I see some friends joining in the audience, always a very positive sign. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our latest edition of Civically Speaking, and certainly a very exciting one featuring some fantastic cast and creatives behind Alice in Rainbowland, which if you, oh, excuse me, I just got so excited saying it that I choked a little bit. Sheesh. If you haven't seen the show, you absolutely must. I will drop a link in the chat for where you can get tickets and learn more a little bit later on in the program. It is incredible, and you are in for a real treat this evening with this conversation. So I am Sarah Scofield-Manser. I am the Assistant Director of Special Events and Partnerships at the A.R.T. I use the she series of pronouns. Short visual description of myself. I am a white woman with dark brown hair that's pulled back in a clip. I've got headphones on. I'm wearing what I think is a cheetah print blouse for all intents and purposes. And I am in my office, which has just a plain yellow wall with a very prominently featured air conditioning vent in the background. Very grateful for it, as it is quite warm where I am in today. I do want to acknowledge that the land that the Loeb Drama Center in Oberon sit upon is the unceded territory of the Massachusetts people. And I myself am calling in from Dracut, Massachusetts, which is the land of the Massachusetts, Abenaki, Pentucket, and Pennacook peoples. A few Zoom housekeeping tips. You'll notice that the chat is disabled, so you cannot communicate with any of our fantastic panelists or myself using the chat, but you may submit questions using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Another thing to note, if you would like to follow along with live subtitles, we have auto-generated subtitles from Zoom available. There is a button at the bottom of your Zoom screen that should have 3 dots and say more. And depending on the type of Zoom that you've got enabled, it should give you an option to turn on a live transcript or to show a subtitle. It is auto-generated by Zoom, so it is not perfect, but it is pretty great. So feel free to turn that on if that's something you would like to use. Last but certainly not least, we have our anti-racism commitment statement that we read at the beginning of every event to set sort of a shared understanding for our standards. That is to say that the ART is unequivocally opposed to hate, and we center anti-racism as a core value. We expect everyone in the ART community, including our audiences, to uphold these values. And as such, we will not tolerate anti-Blackness or racism of any kind in our buildings, nor at our online events. We aim to create an environment that is uninhabitable to racism and to discrimination, where all BIPOC staff, artists, volunteers, audience, and community are seen, heard, valued, and provided the opportunity to thrive. This work is only possible when we do it together. So thank you for being our partner in it. We're very excited to have you here today. I'm very excited to be joined by our fantastic panelists. I don't want to take up too much more time. So without further ado, I would love to welcome our amazing moderator for the evening, Kay, to join me on screen. Hey, hi Kay, how are you?
Hi Sarah, doing well, thank you.
So excited to be here. At this point, I am going to hop off camera and let you do your thing with the group, but I'll be here waiting in the wings if you need me at all. Enjoy.
Thank you so much, and great job, Sarah, kicking us off. Hi, everybody. My name is Kay Martinez. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I am Afro-Latine. I'm wearing a white shirt. I am brown with a little tan, black curly hair, and spectacles. And I will be your panelist moderator tonight. I'm very honored and excited to be here. So at this point, I'd love to welcome the panelists to also join on screen. Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. And I have a few questions prepared, but we very much want to hear from you and incorporate your questions. So if you have questions, please use the Q&A feature to type out your question, and I will do my best to work in your questions in the time that we have today. So the first question I have for our panelists. In the film, Alice is asked, "Pero quién eres tú?" or "Who are you?" To begin, panelists, could you please share with us, who are you? So I will call on each of you as you show up on my Brady Brunch grid here, and you can share who you are with the folks. So first person I see is Ana.
Hello. So thank you so much, Kay. My name is Ana Masacote. I go by she, her. I am a Latina woman. Curly hair is down to one side. I'm sitting in a couch by a window, looking outdoors. So, and excited to be here tonight. I would say I'm a queer Chicana. I grew up in the books and my heart on the dance floor. I'm an Afro Latin dancer by trade, and I definitely believe that art can change worlds. So it's me in a nutshell.
Thank you, Ana. Next person I see is Tina.
Hi, y'all. My name is Tina Cavicchio. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited. I forgot what the questions are, but hold on. I got them. Okay. So my pronouns are she, hers, they, them, whatever you like, basically. And my name, yes, Tina Cavicchio. God, we got that. So who am I? What do I do? Well, I was the Cheshire Cat in the film, and that is my full-time job now. No, I'm just kidding. I loved it so much. It's a full-time job. I am wearing a jean jacket with some necklaces because I saw Lily and I was like, oh my god, I need to dress myself up a little bit. I have black hair that needs to be done a little bit better, but it's okay. We're coming as we are. I am half Japanese, half Italian, and I am a dance choreographer and instructor, and I am mainly in the Afro-Latin dance community, but I do a little bit of everything, and I love movement and dance, and yes, that is not who I am. I think I answered all the questions. Let me know if I did not.
Got it. It's perfect. Thank you. And your hair looks great. Everyone looks great. So next person that I see is Gabriel.
No, I don't want to follow Tina. That's the best intro. Well, hey everyone. My name is Gabriel or Gabe. I have a he, him, his pronouns. I am a loud Boricua Puerto Rican, just in case you don't know what Boricua means, Puerto Rican male, here in Dorchester, a recent dog dad. And I love to dance. I started dancing. If you ever seen the show Glee, that's what I used to do in high school. And that's how I got into dance. Never professionally trained, but I feel like sometimes I have rhythm, just sometimes, right? Very few times. But I am currently in a finished basement with beer behind me because I work for Samuel Adams, a craft brewery here in Boston. And I'm wearing a light pink button down, short sleeve button down with some long, not as long as Anna's hair, but some long ponytail, dark brown Italian Puerto Rican hair that's just mixed and curly. So I absolutely love it. So thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Thank you. JP?
Hello, everybody. My name is just JP. I use any pronouns, she, they, he. I am Salvadorian, born and raised. I am wearing a black t-shirt. I have a full beard, a full face of makeup. I am not wearing lashes. Oops. And I am wearing my signature two-tone lip with a very, what is it? A moving background behind me that is very colorful, fitting for Pride season. I was the big white flower in the Alice in Rainbowland production. And I am a drag performer here in Boston. I've been performing for 5 years now, I guess. Every Pride, I have to add a number, and I am losing track. Thank God for Time Hop. That reminds me of everything that's happened. So yeah, I do drag, and then during my day job, I work for a local domestic violence nonprofit as a trainer, and um, that is me. Ding.
Thank you. And last but not least, Lily.
Hello, everyone. Excuse my voice. Lilly Rose here. She, her pronouns. I'm from Boston. I'm a dancer, model, trans activist. I like to make videos. I'm an artist, just basically spreading the word of my experience. I played the role of Alice, and I'm just really excited to see you all and answer any questions. Oh, and I'm a woman of color. I have big lashes on, a nice red lip, a cross, a floral dress with Victorian sleeves, and a pride background.
Thank you. And let's get into some questions. Again, folks in the audience, feel free to submit your questions so that I can ask the cast your questions. So, Alice in Wonderland, as I've seen it, has historically been a very white narrative. What was it like for you to use this story as a reference point and flip the script to center Black and Latina, queer, and trans folk? So anyone can answer, multiple people can answer. Go for it.
I can kick things off. First and foremost, I think it's such a brilliant idea. I think oftentimes we don't see ourselves in history or in stories enough. And so to be able to produce something where folks from all ages and all backgrounds can see this collaboration of diversity, of thought, of age, of gender, of identity, anything, it's really gorgeous. So I'll say that. And then secondly, I also want to say it also feels second nature, which is a bit sad, that there are oftentimes we don't fit into any mold. So we have to co-opt the mold that's largely there. So there's that underside of like, we can keep pushing the envelope and pushing the future and making that change so that there are more stories with more representation. So that way we don't have to co-opt anything.
And, just to add to Gabe's point that, thank you so much for saying that. I mean, Alice has such a nostalgia in the queer community in general. And I think we kind of knew that going into the project, but I don't think we really understood the power of it until we started doing this. The press has been humbling and nerve-wracking in many ways. It's been such an extreme, eye-opening thing for us to see how much, how important it is to see Black and brown bodies on the stage and in front of the camera. I mean, you have other productions now or movies that are out getting press now about not having Black and brown people in the forefront. And for too long, they're always in the supporting cast and they're in the background. And there need to be more stories that are front and center and placing our stories, these untold stories front and center. And to Gabe's point, not having to co-opt them. Hopefully at some point it won't be a co-opting of it.
I'll say a little bit. So, like both of y'all were saying, I was just like, yes, exactly. I was like, I don't really know how to put this into words, but I know that like me being half, like I have heavily subconsciously and not even known, like really relied on like my half whiteness to like get me by in society or like to latch on to something where like that could be my guide as to like how to exist and try to like muddle down my non-whiteness, and I feel like just recently have I been aware of this like subconscious like molding as someone who's half that I had this like privilege with this half whiteness, or that I kind of look like, what am I? Like, you can't really tell like what I am, especially with like the Asian hate going on and stuff like that. Like, there were all these things that I was just like, well, I never have to deal with that because people are just like generally confused about this existence. Like in general, they like don't know where to place their hate. There's a lot of different options, so they get kind of confused. So I think there were just many things that I wasn't like super aware of because I didn't really like have to be at that moment. And I think it's like they were saying, the the representation, like I remember when I was younger and seeing all these shows or all these whatever I was looking at and just being like, wow, okay, like there's just nobody that looks like me. And I guess that's just okay. And I guess that's just how I have to exist. Or like going to a school that was like mainly white, being like, okay, I guess I'm just like the different one. And that's how I'm going to exist, I guess, you know, and just feeling like I have to just accept the reality. And so it's really nice as I've gotten being able to be like free and I'm an adult and I can do what I want and be in spaces that I choose to be. And now being like, wow, okay, it doesn't have to be like that. And there are so many people who are different, but really we're all different. So we're all the same at the same time. You know what I mean? So it's been like, so productions like this are, yes, freeing. It is freeing. It is so freeing. And so I love that things are being like redone, you know what I mean? Like things are being done in a way to represent so many more types of people, because so many more types of people exist. They just weren't represented. So they weren't able to see it. And then we thought we were alone. I thought it was alone. So yes.
Anyone else care to add on that? In my opinion, though, right, like when I hear co-opting, usually that framework has like a power dynamic, right? It's when like marginalized people do something, create something, and then people in positions of power like take that and then they co-opt it, right? And so here, you know, this narrative comes from like white folks. And I don't feel like y'all co-opted it at all, right? Your marginalized people use it as like a reference point, right? It was like a literary reference to it, but then completely was like, it's not that at all. So I just want to say that. But we have our first question from the audience. So shout out to the person who put that in there. Keep them coming, y'all. And this person would like to know, who are your biggest artistic inspirations?
I can start with that one if that's okay. Um, my artistic inspirations are a lot of the pop divas that I grew up with. Christina Aguilera being like my number one. I strive to work as hard and look as good as Beyonce. I take a lot of inspiration from a lot of my fellow artists in the community here in Massachusetts. We have an amazing bunch of drag entertainers, drag kings, drag queens, drag things. So I take a lot of inspiration from them, from Champagne, from Violencia, from Coleslaw, from Patty Beret, from Magenta, a lot of guidance from Magenta as well. Yeah, and then I've had like the eternal inspirations, as a Latinx person, like Selena, also Gloria Trevi. Like Gloria Trevi was huge for me growing up, and then she went to jail in Brazil and then came back as a queer icon. And I remember that the day that she finally went to El Salvador, it was a huge storm and only like 50 people showed up to the concert, and it was such a shame. Yeah, anyways. So I take a lot of inspiration from that as well. And from my parents, like my mom was a really outgoing, cheetah print loving woman, and my dad was an multidisciplinary artist. So here I am, a multidisciplinary, cheetah loving artist.
Well, I'll keep it a little short because I want to, just because I know we have a lot, but I gear towards people who walk their own path, and I do the same. And so, my biggest inspiration for my life is Marsha P. Johnson, and it has always been that since I came into myself a few years ago. She's informed my work, and is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. Someone else who I really love is Lana Del Rey, which is my favorite musician. just because I'm very mellow in some ways, and her music kind of gives that vibe. So, and you'll see her kind of in my stuff. And then I think also just my house mother, Naomi Maldonado, House of Amazon, and she is the reason why I found who I was, back in 2016. I met her in my first Vogue class. And she knew who I was before I knew who I was. And those are just always people you want to keep around. So sorry, I get a little nervous talking about it. So that's all.
That was gorgeous, Lilly. Lilly and Lana. Ooh, always a good match. But I have to echo what both Just JP and Lilly stated. I think you can find artistic inspiration, at least for me, more so from my community versus artists that are big. Of course, I want to look as good as Beyonce always. And can we talk about J-Lo? Oh, does not age a single day. But all that to say, I really love their work ethic, but where I think the artistic is really from community. Like the fact that Ana does so much production. I just learned JP runs Drag Queen Story Hour. The fact that Lilly does so many videos, and now I follow, these are the people who are like, oh my God, I could do this and this. And they're doing this. Like, that's what gets me hyped. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I have to go to XYZ night and support and do this. And like, I'm ready. So I think yes, there are bigger artists out there doing amazing things. I love their work ethic. I love what they stand for, but I think it's our community where that artistic comes from for me.
I just have to echo everything that Gabe just said. Like, I just feel so blessed to have been able to work with so many amazing artists in this production alone. People that inspire me, that even different artists wrote different, really enacted different parts of their thing. The whole idea of Tina doing this Cheshire Cat thing was not in the script, or it was just something that Tina just decided to do. And when Gabe had the scene of the dance cover with Lilly, like having that, the Alice and dance cover connection was all there. And just JP is just like phenomenal. JP literally made me cry the very first take. And I kid you not, very first take that we did, I was like, I don't think it can be any better than that. And we did one second take. And then it was like, no, it's just the first take. We're just going to do that. And so I find so much blessing in my community and inspiration in the people that I collaborate with. There's, of course, the artists that we grow up with, our Selinas, for me, for sure, JP. Our Beyoncés. I one time I remember saying, I wonder how Beyonce looks in the morning. It's like, you always want to know. You're like, no, she's just a goddess all the time. My Fridas, the people who have created art in the queer community and really have used their voice to enact change politically. Like, that's just amazing. But as much as we can look up to that, it's just also inspirational to work with the artists in the community too.
Yes. Amen. Hallelujah. Whatever to all of that. What was said. This production, for sure, I have stolen or been inspired, whatever I stole, so many things that I have seen that I'm like, oh my God, that was amazing. And gonna steal, whatever. But yeah, this production has created so much inspiration for me in what I do, because I am a little bit of a crazy person, whatever, but sane, because hello, we all are. So I love everything and anything that's new and anything that I can learn. And so being around a bunch of artists of different kinds of art and different interpretations of art was so incredible to watch, and so inspiring. And also just I don't know, I guess a celebrity person is Periscopal, because who doesn't love Periscopal? And I love anybody really who kind of go back to the first question where it was talking about kind of breaking these norms that we have been taught, or that were in my head at least, of for example, what a dancer should look like, right? Oh, a dancer supposed to be tall and skinny and bleh. And nah, dancer is a dancer. We can have whatever kind of body, whatever kind of whatever. We can be whatever. A dancer is a dancer is a dancer. And I didn't realize that I had these preconceived notions of like what a dancer should look like, blah, blah, blah. So I love when people kind of break that for me and be like, oh my God, I didn't know I had this preconceived notion in my brain. So anyway, we love our curly dancers too. And also in the community that I'm in a lot is the Afro-Latin dance community where there's a lot of partner dancing. And I know for a long time, I was in the partner dance community in like another scene, and I was always taught that there was a man role and a woman role. And that's where I stayed for many, many, many years. And then I came into the Afro-Latin dance community and I saw people like Anna who broke that. And I was just like, wait, I can do the other one? Because I like didn't know that I could do that. So like, and it's still like in Boston, it has gotten so much better where like, okay, we've like kind of broken this norm of like men and women, first of all, because like what? There's like many other things. And also that we like now try to say leaders and followers or blah, blah, blah. But it's still not the case in so many other places that I've gone to. And Boston's come a long way, but we have like so far to go with that. But anyway, the people who have broken that norm for me has helped me do literally my job. And like, I don't know if I would be doing what I'm doing without the people who came before me to show me that I could do it. So yeah.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you for the audience question. If you have other questions, I see you. I know you're here. So feel free to submit them so I can ask the cast. So here's a question that I had, right? I've seen the film a few times, fanboy here. And this one is for Lilly Rose. And I just want to talk about a scene that you had where you're dancing alone. You're in the white outfit. You got these trans flag boots. You're holding a brick. You have a trans flag with Black Trans Lives Matter on it. And I was hoping that you could share with us what that scene and symbolism meant to you.
Yeah, so I made a video in quarantine last year when we were all stuck, and it was to Lady Gaga's Alice video song, sorry. And there's a few lines in there that really resonated with me, especially being tired of screaming. That's something that I've been saying for years because I've been preaching since 2016 about trans lives. So, when Ana, talked to me about this show, I figured that I wanted to showcase that work again. And I really wanted to amplify the thing that I have been screaming about since 2016, which is the alarming rate that Black trans women are being murdered these days. I always kind of have the brick is always just like an ongoing narrative just because of Marsha. I believe some of the same behaviors are happening these days, and I feel like it is my duty to continue the story. So keep throwing the brick. I have a version of a brick these days. My brick is actually glass, and I throw glass, and that is an extension of my anger. So to start off, the white outfit was just because I wanted to look fabulous and feel pretty and feel my most grounded self. The brick, as I mentioned, was just furthering this, what Marsha was yelling about years ago, because even within the community, I see discrimination towards Black trans women. And I think it's a problem because I always say if we're going to grow, we need to fix within the house, externally, people are always going to probably be mean to us, but we got to be brothers and sisters and connected. So that's what that brick meant for me. And then the flag, I always use flags as well. And Ana and I spoke about, displaying Black Trans Lives Matter on that. I'm always writing that. I live by that. So it was just really furthering my narrative from what I was feeling in quarantine. And I was feeling alone and sad, like many people. And I was watching my sisters in quarantine being murdered, both by domestic violence and by just walking on the street and being attacked. It was a very hard time performing that piece because, it was the same moment of Jahara's death, which was a local trans activist in the community. And it's still very hard to even think about it and talk about it. But I knew that if I was going to get through that scene, it would be for her and the many other sisters who have been taken from us. And I have to do my job while I'm here, because who knows who's next, or I don't know if I'm next. So it was just a lot of my emotions coming out in that scene. Hopefully that answered. I hope I didn't ramble.
No, I mean, take all the space you'd like. So thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing that. And, I have a couple other questions, so we'll keep it moving. Okay, so I once heard this quote that comes from author Jeff Chang. He's written a couple books. One is called Can't Stop, Won't Stop. So he writes on art and culture. And he said that cultural change always precedes political change. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that quote and how LGBTQ plus art has and continues to impact political change, given that this event is called Art for Social Change.
Well, I can think of, like, right now, there's a huge cultural change of like trans folks and gender nonconforming folks being accepted, and things made accessible for us. But yet there's 14 states that have passed or try to pass anti-trans legislation. So while culturally we may be moving towards acceptance and towards, um, while many things are being normalized in terms of the transgender experience and the umbrella, of trans experiences, still 2020 was the deadliest year on record for trans women of color, especially trans Black women. So we need to be part of the solution. We can't just sit. Doing nothing is not acceptable.
I'll piggyback off of JP because I love that. And this whole production is a testament to that. We are changing that narrative and affecting our culture and increasing our representation. And the more we do that, the more acceptance increases, and then that leads to political change. I'm a firm believer in that. JP said it right on the money. The more that we can get ourselves out there, the more that together, like Lilly was saying perfectly, we can move forward and we can be safe in our own bodies and our own identities. And we all need that. I can't imagine we'd be here today without the media, the artists, anyone who's participated in showcasing LGBTQ plus storylines, from TV to any media, even YouTube or TikTok. Like, it's to be, let's just take same-sex couples. If same-sex couples 20 years ago, were afraid in their particular neighborhood, they might not be in this particular time frame, which is great, but that doesn't mean the work is yet to be done. There's still so much to do. So much to do.
And the truth is that we, in general, policy reflects the way people view the world, right? And there's a saying that if you look at the art in your city, you get an idea to the emotional heartbeat that it is containing. And artists are always preceding many of the changes that happen in communities, because it's really calling out a different change of perspective that we have. And so I think very often about how Domo is able to be struck down after a lot of the Love is Love campaigns. If you remember that, there were a lot of the videos with people coming together, and it was queer people together, and it normalized queerness in society. And having that ability to see that was important for communities to start understanding that. And you can have art in very simple ways. It can be poetry. It can be a conversation. Through a dance. Dance in general is communication, but ultimately it's helping people communicate in a way without having to have a direct talk one after the other. And it really just helps to push forward more conversations. I do think that there needs to be a lot more conversation, to Lily's point, around Black trans lives and more advocacy. And I am seeing a little bit more art in that direction, but I'm seeing a lot more of that conversation trying to push that because of all the legislation that is happening now. But in order to change politics and some of these legislations that are getting passed against transgender youth in particular, you need to start advancing or pushing some of the conversations in our everyday discourse as well. And this art is just one big way of doing that.
Thanks, everybody. So a scene that really resonated with me was when Ana was dancing with Mori to the spoken word piece, Do You Not See Us Dancing? So for me, as a non-binary person, it reminded me of the times that I've faced harassment or those kinds of comments or interactions, like in bathrooms, the workplace, the clubs, etc. And I was hoping that whoever would like to could share your strategies for thriving amidst that oppression and harassment. Like so many times, I feel like we talk about all of the things we endure, like the trauma, but we don't really share like what are our survival or thriving strategies. It's just the emphasis on like the harm. So I feel like that piece really touched on a lot. So anybody?
I can jump in first because I really do want to give a shout out to an organization called Hollaback. I recently took a free bystander intervention training from them, and it was, I mean, it's basic things, like, but it helped me really frame my mind. Like, if I were in a situation where I was getting harassed or witnessing harassment, I was like, oh my God, I could do these things, whatever my comfortability is. And I think, again, I can't stress enough what has been said in this panel, the togetherness. If we are facing things together, you don't feel alone. You can, hopefully withstand the trauma with someone else. Like it's a front. And that leads to change when you can be with someone else and not feel alone. So in particular cases of harassment, definitely please be a bystander where you can, and feel comfortable, of course. But in terms of survival in situations where it may be a workplace or school or your family, you have to find your outlets. Sometimes you can't meet those folks who are creating that environment that it's negative, where they are, and that's okay. You don't have to take that on. It is not your job to fully be that person's guiding light. But you also have to make sure that you can find your own light. So if there's that one coworker that you can kiki with, or that one friend that will, no matter what, they will pick up your phone call during a shift or whatever. Like find those areas where you can just decompress or just review it, because you can't keep it bottled in. You can't keep it bottled in. So anyways, I'm going to pass it to Tina because I know I saw her mic coming off.
Thank you, Gabriel. Wow, that piece that Ana did actually brought me to tears, because I've lived that too, for sure. And like, it just was like, whoa, that is like my story. And I can only really speak in like, I can speak about like bathrooms. Trust me, I get run into after the bathroom and stuff for all the time. And but specifically in the Afro-Latin dance community, I spoke a little bit about how, it was a very historically gendered dance. And like that scene that Ana did is just like something that I like actually have lived. And obviously I'm assuming Ana has lived as well. And then, I remember there were times where I was, at a social, we call them socials in the Afro-Latin dance community, where you go and you just dance with people. And it's partner dancing mostly. And people would be like, people, male appearing people would come in between us and like try to break us apart, or like think that like, I don't know, like we didn't have someone to dance with, or I would get all kinds of just like very disgusting comments, or sexualized comments because I was a woman dancing with a woman, or I would get rejected by female presenting humans, because they would be like, but you're a girl. But you're a girl. I can't dance with you, or I'm not gay, or whatever. And I was like, I just want to dance, and you're short and I'm learning how to do this. That's the only reason why I'm asking you. That's it. Okay. You're not that cute anyway. But I know that like that was like, I just had to decide in my mind, because as I traveled too, like it was like even worse when I traveled, like the whole gendering thing of like, this is the role you take as a man, this is the role you take as a woman. And I was just like, you know what? Screw that. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. And like, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to kick me out. I'll go somewhere else. So I just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. Because I just was like, you know what? I'm seeing people like Ana do it. So I'm going to do it. And it's going to be hard. And that's okay. And then as things progressed and I started being able to teach, and I started being able to have my team or whatever, I was like, okay, what can I do to try to like help this, because the world can sometimes feel like so big. So what can I do in this community so I can try to create some sort of change? So maybe someone has to go through the same thing that me and Ana had to go through. So, in my classes, I tried to really be like very clear about what the expectations are, like respecting people's pronouns, respecting people's desired roles, and also normalizing leading and following as just leading and following. And that in all of my intensive workshops, everybody does both. And so if people don't want to do both, you don't have to come to my class. But it's like trying to normalize and desexualize and degender these things that we've been taught are sexual and gendered, right? Because that is another problem. And that's where we get into problems with consent and problems of sexual harassment as well. So there's like all these encompassing things that could be stemmed from just this like, and I believe that it's really on the leaders and instructors to help create that change, because the students are only doing what they see the instructors say, and if the instructor's like touching this person's butt and not saying, hey, I'm touching this person's butt because they're my wife, please do not do this to random people on the dance floor, then like that's what they're teaching, So it's the same thing with helping to represent all these things that we're trying to change as leaders and stuff. So it's like you said.
Well, thank you, Tina, because that was iconic, and you need to scream for that. Continue to scream for that. It's kind of a hard question, because I actually sometimes don't know how I survive and how I deal with the things. I just wake up and I kind of go about my day. But something that has been a coping mechanism is really transforming my pain and what people put me through into art, and showing people that this is what happens and this is my reality, and that I have the most strength out of, it might sound egotistical, but I have a lot of strength, and I have a lot more strength than the people I hang around. So I think that's kind of what keeps me going, being able to have an outlet and just create beautifully dark, sad visuals that show what the heck is going on in my head, so that people can see that and then change for their smaller communities. I also think that sometimes I felt like every time something happened, whether it was transphobic or misgendered or whatever, I think that every single time just gets a little easier, and every year you grow a little bit more, and you have tough skin. So I'm still actually figuring out this question. I'm trying to find the answer, but yeah, I think it's just about finding the little pockets of joy that you can amidst all the chaos.
So, Ana, we had a follow-up question from the audience where someone asked, what was your inspiration for the written word piece and the production?
That's Creative Seed. Thanks for asking that. So I just want to acknowledge what Lilly was saying just for a moment too about how we learn to cope over time. I kind of think of Boston as this place of like, I came here and people always said, you get used to the cold. I'm from Texas originally. And I was like, you do not get used to the cold. Whoever said that, then don't. No, you do not get used to the cold. You learn to deal with it. And harassment, I think, for me is very much that. And it doesn't get easier for me. And I was definitely cyberbullied and cyberbullied before there was a Facebook and social media. I mean, like, let me not give away my age. But I had to learn to show up for me. And I remember sometimes people wanted to talk back to people who were cyber or trolling me and stuff. And I would say, and it was literally because because I had been out and people were not okay with that. I had not one single person in my community and my family to support me. I didn't live in a time where there was internet and you could figure out where can I go to support groups. So I had to figure it out on my own. Like, was I confused? What did that mean for me? And so I realized that hate eats out the person that gives it. It's not for me to receive. And I also realized that they might do that, but that work, I'm not there to teach them that. Like, I'm not there to teach them what they need to know or how to show up. That's their learning and unlearning to do. My responsibility is to focus on my healing. So that's what I focus on. I really just say, the healing is on me. In terms of how that intersected with my poetry. Poetry is what I started doing when I came out. And again, that was my coping mechanism. That was when I began to write. It was me writing my truth into existence. And telling my story for me. And my poetry was always for me. I never shared it. I wasn't a spoken word artist. I began sharing it a little bit in the last maybe 5 years or so. And that was a very vulnerable place to be because it takes a lot of courage to wear your heart on your sleeve. And so everybody, all the cast in this really came and showed up. In terms of how that intersected with the scene, everything that Tina said has happened to me in the sense of every time I would start dancing with somebody, there was always a leader, a guy or someone that wanted to cut in. So I got to the point where I learned to block. I had to start learning mechanisms of how to dance to block people's entrance and to smile like, hey, and then going on. I actually found it interesting because internationally, I traveled internationally, and internationally, in some spaces, they were a little more accepting of female leads. So I actually would notice really interesting places, like when I was in Korea and I had a line of people wanting to dance with me, like of women. And then you would get a guy that wanted to cut into the line because the guy thought that he could do that. And the woman would have to be like, no, I'm dancing with her. And so little odd things and gendered things like that would happen. And I started realizing very much how the way that we show up on the dance floor has a large effect in how we show up in our everyday life. It's a complete storytelling aspect. Like, you can see how people come into a space in the dance world, and that is how they live. That's their lived experience in the world as well. And so if we can just do small little things, even in our dance world, that has a huge effect to how people come and show up in our spaces outside of it. So my wording was on that. It's on realizing that and helping people, hopefully, I'm wondering if people watch this caught that, but hopefully helping people realize that this space, this dance space, this movement space is for everybody. And it's not for somebody else to tell you that you belong here, that it's okay. And so that is just a small little inclination or a ripple, hopefully, to start getting people to actually see that Afro-Latin dance is queer-centric as well. You are welcome. Everybody is.
Thank you, Ana. Start working on my blocks. And in the Q&A, we just had an offering of gratitude and appreciation. So, y'all, it doesn't always have to be questions. You can always just share your comments with the panel. And I just want to, share this really nice comment that was just offered where someone said that they had questions, but we've answered them so far. And this person just wanted to give Tina a particular shout out. He spoke to their heart, their angst, their pain regarding Latin dance and gender roles. So y'all, the attendees who are here, we have, let's see, a little less than about 10 minutes left. So if you have any last questions, please submit them, or just things you want to say to the cast, feel free to put that in there, because I will keep going. I have some questions that I had for them. So we've talked a little bit about the heavy aspects of trauma, right? Dealing with harassment. And you've mentioned that, we need to find our spaces of joy, which is kind of what I thought Rainbowland was a reference to. And so my question for any and all of you is, where is your Rainbowland?
Ooh, it's me again. I'll start. Any place where I don't have to think about myself. So one particular place is I'm part of a dance group called Quam. And anytime I'm there, I don't have to think of my skin color. I don't have to think of my gender. I don't think of like nothing. I'm just fully there and it's natural. And I think those are my rainbow lands.
Yeah, very similarly to me as stage, being on stage and performing. To me, that's my rainbow land. Lilly.
I would say my rainbow land. I'm a little bit of a hippie at heart, and no one really knows that. But when I take my walks, they're the most peaceful time, probably the most peaceful time of my day. Being able to just listen to whatever music I want, zone out a little bit, but being aware because I know my reality, and just not thinking. So walks and the beach and rocks.
So my rainbow land started at a very young age, and we talked about some heavy stuff and talked about some trauma and talked about some things that are not so great. And growing up, I had a lot of the things that weren't so great. And so my rainbow land started in a fantasy world in my head that I would go into and live in this fantasy world so that I didn't have to deal with the actual world that was so terrible. And in this fantasy land, we can call it Rainbow Land now. In Rainbow Land, I could be whoever I wanted to be. And a lot of times I was a backup dancer in NSYNC. So a lot of times that was my Rainbow Land. Yes, or in Beyonce's music video or whatever. But like dance and that fantasy dance Rainbow Land was like where I like to live. And anytime something bad happened, I would go into this little land in this fantasy land in my brain. And I am so incredibly blessed that like I get to live this now. It's so insane. Like I never thought that like I would get to live like my rainbow land that was only in my brain and a way for me to cope as a child is now how I'm able to live. Like it's become reality and it's so incredible. And so now I feel like my whole life and every time that I dance, every time that I connect with someone and even the challenges that we talked about, even those times where, I see like all the things that we need to work on as a community. And I see, someone new come in and be like, wow, this community feels so like accepting. Like those moments too are like, wow, I'm getting to like live this rainbow land that I didn't think that I knew I wanted or needed. So that is my rainbow land is now like things like this.
I just gotta say, I love that so much. Yeah, there's this one line at the end of the production that was cut, and it was, welcome to Rainbow Land, where love is queen. How will you show up? And then we figured, we're beating people over the head with this. Like, we've already said that through the dance. We don't need to say it. But I guess for me, if I think of it that way, my Rainbow Land is a place where I feel love, which it can be on my own. It can be with a room full of creatives. It can be at a walk at the park with a friend and a conversation. And it can be in a forum like this, gathering with people who are just amazing. And so it's just any place where I feel love.
Thank you, everybody. I think our last question in the last 5 minutes will be, do you have any advice to give to young queer and or trans BIPOC artists and performers who are out there?
Can I go, or is anyone going to go? Because I'm always thinking about the future and who's coming after me, and that's why I do what I do. But I think as far as like queer artists, and particularly to trans like youth who are going into art, find your muses and kind of see what they did to get where they are, and just kind of do what they do, but also have a part of you within your art. You know, there's nothing like your own artistic voice, and there's also nothing like standing your ground, even when people don't support your art. I've had moments where I thought I needed approval from people with my stuff, and I realized that at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter because I'm still going to make my stuff and keep making it and keep making it. So if there's any advice I could say is like, just have your own artistic voice, find your muses, and also plan ahead and be, I would say, just be organized. One of my biggest muses, I'll leave you with this, is she said, make your life into a work of art. And I truly believe that. Like you have to make your life into a work of art. And a work of art is not beautiful all the time. So be okay with those dark times. That's all.
So I would say I really love the idea of being organized, like Lily was saying. I am not one of those people. I am very disorganized and chaotic. And I think something for me is like realizing that every artist is also just like every artist is going to look different in like how they do their artistry. And like some people are going to be like super organized like Lily, and some people are going to be chaotic like me, or somewhere in between. And that's great. And I think also, you know, my whole role as like the Cheshire Cat was like stepping outside of these boxes, right? Like there are so many boxes that I like put myself in because I thought I should be a certain way, and had to be like, wait a minute, I don't need to be that one. And then I was in another one, I didn't even know it was another one. And I'd be like, oh my God, I'm in another box. And I'd be like jumping from box to box to box. And I still think that there's some boxes in here I'm not even aware of. And I'll be like, oh my God, I was in a box again. And I think that's like for the same thing with my art. I've been told many things like I should do this, I should do this, I should only do this, or I should whatever, like I should focus on only this. And you know, I feel like the more that I do whatever I presently am really passionate about, because for me that changes like on a day-to-day basis. So that's why I was like, I was inspired by so many things, and I'm going to do so many new things because I'm like, whatever, I just jump around. And so I feel like for me, the way that my artistry works is that I try to do whatever I'm presently passionate about. And then is when I'm like more like presently focused, then like things will appear that like I'm ready for. Because there's many things that I thought that I wanted, but then like come to find out, like I wasn't ready for it at that moment. So the universe didn't present it to me yet because I wasn't ready. And the more that I try to force things to happen that I might not be subconsciously ready for, the more that it's not going to go in alignment with what I actually want. So that's kind of how I do. Chaos.
Mm-hmm. My advice is unless you want that, don't let capitalism be the ruler of your success. Because in this capitalist world, many of us may sometimes feel pressured into turning our art into a hustle, and our art is beautiful just as, you know, it is. And if you choose to turn your art into a hustle, get organized.
For me, be confident, even when you're not confident. I think I've often shied away or went against my gut feeling, and you know, who knows where I would be in those moments. But especially as a growing up, be confident. To Tina's point, don't force anything if you're not ready. But when you're ready and you know, you'll know. You got this.
Oh, echo all this. I would say that I want to acknowledge that we're in a very tough time with a lot of legislation that's coming out, particularly targeting youth, queer youth, and transgender youth in the transgender community. And that has caused a lot of mental health issues, particularly at this time in the community. And I think it's important to acknowledge that for parents or people watching this have connection to queer youth, check in on them. It's important for people to know that you're there and that you're just a phone call away or a text away, or a walk away. And for youth watching this, I want to remind you that sometimes things take a little time. And the world sometimes takes a lot of time to catch up to where we are and where we need to be. But you have the power to also create your own Rainbowland. You don't need to wait for someone to give you the okay to do that. So believe in yourself. And it's really ultimately about knowing yourself, believing in you, and staying with that, because nobody's going to know you better than yourself. Oh, I'm quoting Absalom.
Well, thank you everyone so much for your work on this amazing and impactful film that I really enjoyed. And thank you for being here and sharing so much about yourselves. So I will hand it back over to Sarah to close us out.
It's just such a beautiful and generous conversation. Thank you, all of you. And thank you, Kay, for being a fantastic moderator and facilitator. This was such a treat to listen to. I teared up more than once and was very grateful to not be on camera for it. So just thank you all very much from the bottom of my heart. Fantastic evening. Just amazing. And thank you everyone at home for watching. If you hadn't had the opportunity to watch Alice in Rainbowland yet, never fear. When the Zoom screen closes, you will be automatically directed to the show's webpage so you can get your tickets. And we highly encourage you to do that. To all your friends, it is phenomenal and it is streaming through the end of the month. Thank you all again so much. A pleasure to be on a Zoom screen with you. Have a great night and we will see you soon. Bye, everyone.